Hi friends, welcome back to my quilt room and welcome to another Fall Friday. And if you're new here, I'm so glad you stopped by. Today we have a fun project. We're going to do a rag quilt. And since it's the first week of October, I thought we would add a little Halloween to it. So I'm doing it out of this fat quarter bundle that I got. It's called Home Sweet Haunt by Moda. And apparently this is very popular because I could not find a layer cake anywhere. So I had to buy the whole fat quarter bundle. So this is going to be our top. And for our middle, I'm going to do a white flannel. And then for the back, I'm going to do a green flannel. So this should be a fun project. It's definitely beginner friendly and definitely a quilt as you go. So let's get started. Okay, so let me show you what I did with my fat quarters and how I cut these. Now for this quilt, there are 31 fat quarters in this bunch, and I'm probably only going to do about 42, which is what I would have done if I had a layer cake. So I'm probably going to cut like definitely one out of each, and then some two. I'll cut two, so it'll give me the 42. So what I did was, first thing I did was I ironed this because there are some deep wrinkles in this. And I also starched it because they really weren't coming out with the iron itself. So let me do that real quick and then I'll show you how I cut this. Okay, so I have this all ironed down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. I'm just going to line it up at the bottom here. And I have a selvage edge over here. So I'm going to clean that up first. And just to get it as straight as I can, I'm going to line that up with one of my lines at the bottom of my mat. And then I'm going to cut that selvage off first. Then I'm going to come over 9.5. I'm going to line my ruler up with that bottom edge and my side edge over here. And then I'm going to cut 9.5. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up. And I know this is a straight edge over here. Actually, it's not a straight edge. So let me clean this up real quick. Okay, now I'm going to cut a 9.5. And there's my one square. So I'm going to continue to do that with all of my fat quarters until I have the amount of squares that I want. And since I only need like one or two from each fat quarter, I have plenty left over for another project. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my back flannel and my middle flannel, which is the white. And when I get everything cut, I will be right back, and then I will show you how we're going to put all this together. Okay, so I have all my squares cut, and I also have my flannel for the backing and my flannel for the inside. And what I did was I cut 2 squares from every fat quarter panel that I had. And I made 2 piles. So each one has 31 squares. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up on my design wall one of every fat quarter that I had. And then I'm just going to fill in with the remainder wherever I need a color or a pattern. Now, in determining what size I wanted my quilt, you want to take into consideration how big you cut your blocks and the seam allowance that it's going to take when you sew them together to rag it. Now you can cut your blocks at any size you want. I cut mine at 9.5, but you can cut them at 5 inches, 6, 6.5, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever you want. Given that, you want to take the size of your block and subtract the amount of seam allowance you're going to take in when you combine the two blocks to rag it. So I'm doing 3/4 of an inch for mine. And that again will determine how big you want that based on your block size. Because if you're doing maybe a 5-inch block, you might not want 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. You might want maybe a 1/2 an inch. So what I did was I took my block and subtracted 1.5 inches from it, because I'm going to lose 3/4 of an inch here and 3/4 of an inch here. And then I took that dimension. So if, like, for this 9.5 inch, I'm going to lose 1.5 inches. So basically I have an 8-inch block that I'm working with. So I just took like 8 inches and then determined how long I wanted my quilt and then divided that 8 inches into that. So if I want, say, a 64-inch wide, then I'll take the 8 divided by that, and I would need 8 blocks. So hopefully that makes sense. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my pile, go to my design wall, lay it all out, and then I'm going to fill in wherever I need a color or a pattern to get my 6 across and 7 down. So when I get that done, I will show you what I came up with. So this is pretty much what I came up with. And I just played around with the colors and the patterns. And I have my 6 across and my 7 down. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to show you how we're going to sandwich our blocks and how we're going to put this all together. So I have one of my blocks in front of me. And basically how we're going to do this is we're going to take one of our backing flannels, lay that face down. We're going to take our inside flannel, line that up, and then we're going to take our top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew from corner to corner and just make a big X in here. Now you could do this one of a couple ways. You could mark it if you wish. You could just fold it and crease it. And if you think that would work, if that's a big enough crease. I mean, I could definitely see that. But what I'm going to do is, my favorite way, I'm going to take my Hera marker and I'm just going to put my ruler and mark it that way. It gives me a little deeper of a mark. But whichever way you're comfortable with, then that's what you want to do. And the other thing too is I'm going to pin this because I really don't want this to move while I am sewing this. I want to keep these layers pretty much straight on. So I'm just going to pin all the way around. So it moves as less as possible. So I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to put my X in, and when I'm done all 42 blocks, I will be back and I'll show you how we're going to connect everything. So I have all my squares sewn with my X, and here it is. And what I did was for the lighter colored blocks, like the greens and the creams, I used my normal, it's like a champagne color thread. And then for the black, I used black thread. So you might want to think about that too, depending on what color blocks. The only thing I didn't do, I made this mistake, was thinking that you just automatically match your bobbin with your top thread. So I did the cream on the light colors, which was fine, and the cream on the back. But for the black ones, I did black and black. And so now I have black and cream thread. So, you know, think about that. It doesn't really bother me, but you might think about that when you're sewing, depending on what colors you're using for your blocks. So now let me show you how I'm going to join these. So I have one row in front of me, and basically I just stacked them up like that. And then I took it to the machine, and I'm going to bring you with me so I can just show you how to sew a couple of them. So let's go to the machine and we'll start sewing. Okay, so I have my stack here, and basically what I'm going to do is first I'm going to start with a lead because, or a starter, whatever you want to call it. I also put my walking foot on, and just get this started. And what I did was I measured my from my needle 3/4 of an inch out, and then I put this seam guide here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 blocks, the rest down here, and I'm going to put them back to back. And I'm going to line them up, making sure that they're lined up at the edge here, the bottom, and the top. And just adjust it wherever you need to. And I'm going to put a couple clips so it doesn't move. Put one at the top and one at the bottom. Now I'm going to line it up with my seam guide, and I'm going to sew 3/4 of an inch all the way down. And what I found out is going slow with this is so much better, because when I went really fast with it, I felt like it was pushing my even with the walking foot, it was still pushing my fabric down. So, and it was kind of like almost wanting to pucker at the bottom. So I just went really slow with my machine. And I know I like to go fast too, but with this project, for some reason, I think it's all these layers, and even with the walking foot, I still felt like it wanted to push my top down. So I just went slow. Okay, so that is my first one. So I'm going to take these out. I'm going to clip off my starter piece, put that back under there. And this is what we have. So we have our 3/4 inch, and this is what we're going to clip after, and that's what's going to rag. So I just continued with the next piece, put those together. Hopefully you can see this. Lined it up at the top and the bottom, making sure that they were all lined up. Then I put a clip at the top, clip at the bottom, lined it up with my seam guide, and just went slow. And that's what I did. So once I get all these done, I'm going to do one row, and I'm going to show you the difference between what isn't sewn yet and what is sewn. And I'm going to show you the difference in size and how much that it shrinks up. So let me get this top row done, and then I'll show you the difference. So this is the first row that I sewed, and then this is the second one, and you can see the difference between this top row and the second one where it has not been sewn yet. So this is what I say when you have to take into consideration the seam allowance for your ragging and the size of your blocks. And that will determine how many blocks you should need for your length and your width. So I just wanted to show you that. And then I'm going to finish up all my blocks in my rows. And then I'm going to show you how to sew the rows together. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we have 2 rows done now. Actually, I have all my rows done, but here's 2 of them. So what you're going to do now is you're going to do the same as we did before. You're going to put the backs to the back. So what you want to do is, and I'm just going to move these down so you can just see the first couple here. You're going to take your back of your first row to the back of your second row, and you're going to open up your seams flat. And you want to sort of match those up. So just line them up. And then you're going to clip it or pin it or whatever your preferred method is. And then you're going to also match up your blocks. I'm just going to put a couple clips in here. And you're going to continue opening up those seams, matching them up, and clipping them together. And then just trying to keep your rows straight like that. And basically, you're just going to continue all the way down to the end of the row, opening up those seams, making sure that they kind of match. If they're a little off, don't sweat it. When this thing starts ragging, you're not even going to notice it. Just so long as it's not really that far off. And then once I get this done, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew it exactly how I did with the blocks. Just going to start at one end and go all the way down with my 3/4 inch seam allowance. And then once I get that done, I'm going to do that to all my rows. And then I'm going to explain the process on how we're going to get this to rag, because we have to clip all this. So I'm going to show you how to do that and then explain the process on how to finish this off, because we have to go through a washing process. So I'm going to get all my rows done. This is what it's looking like. I'm going to sew that straight down, and then I'm going to continue to add my rows, and then I'll be back and I'll show you and I'll explain to you the next process. Okay, so I have it all sewn down. All my rows are together. And let me just say that this is very weighty at this point. So it's going to be a really nice warm quilt. Now, the one thing I did find out as I was doing this was when I was going through and sewing down my seams, I was finding that underneath the machine was kind of pushing this that way. So my seams were closing over. And luckily, I found out quite early in the process. So I was able to go back and I had to pretty much unstitch like 3 of these and redo them. Now you'll see this one I didn't catch. So I have to just pull that out, or I can just leave it and just cut it right on either side of that seam. It really doesn't matter. You're never really going to see that because it's once it rags, it's going to hide that. But I'm going to fix it anyway. So now what I want to do is I want to go and sew 3/4 inch all the way around the quilt, because we are going to rag these ends too. So you need something to stop that from fraying too much. So you want to sew 3/4 inch, same as the seam allowance you used here. So whatever your seam allowance is, that's what you want to do. Is to make that stay stitch all the way around so that you can rag these edges also. So I'm going to do that, and when I come back, I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so I have the quilt all sewn down with the 3/4 inch seam line all the way, or stitch line all the way around the quilt. So you can see that here. And as you go through, you want to sew down each seam also. So now the one thing I want to say that I did was for each seam that I came across, I backstitched. And the reason was because some of the seams where I sewed my blocks together were coming apart because there's nothing crossing over. So there's nothing really holding that together. So I just double stitched here just to reinforce that, just in case this comes apart. I don't think it, like it's only the top stitches there, but I did that for all my seams. And I also did that as I went around and sewed my rows together too. I backstitched all here. So now what we want to do is we want to start ragging this, and we need to start cutting all these seams that are sticking up. So I have a couple pair of scissors that I use for this. Now you can use regular scissors. You do not have to have special scissors for this, but using regular scissors can hurt your hands after a while. So if that's all you have, just take your time and do it as as you can. Just if you get tired after, or your hands hurt after a certain amount of rows, take a break. But I have these spring-loaded scissors that are really helpful. And there's this style, and then I have this style. And what you want to do is all these seams that are sticking up, you want to slice them just up to the stitch line, about a 1/2 inch apart. So like this. You don't want to cut that stitch line though. If you did cut the stitch line by accident, it's not a big deal. Just fold it together and just slip that under the machine and reinforce it. So you want to go along, and each line of seam that you have sticking up, you want to just slice 1/2 inch on both sides. And again, just be careful as you go. Take your time. And you want to do that for the whole quilt. And then on the edges, you want to do the same thing. And you just want to cut a 1/2 inch. And I'm doing this at an awkward angle, so. But you want to cut this a 1/2 inch apart. Just don't cut the seam line, or the stitch line, I should say. Now, when you get to the part where you join everything together, what I usually do is I just go underneath, do a little clip, and then on top, do a little clip there. And then here, I usually just clip right here. And then start down the other side. This you can also do this way too. So it really doesn't matter. You can go this way with it. Just don't do both ways. And then you can just continue here. So, totally up to you which way you want to do it. So, I'm going to finish clipping this. And you see how it's going to get nice and fluffy once we wash it. I'm going to continue clipping this all around all my seams, including around the whole quilt. And I'll come back and we'll talk about the next step. Okay, so I have all my seams snipped and they're ready to go into the washer. But before I do that and we talk about that, I wanted to just show you a little tip that I found when cutting all these seams. And this is my last one I'm going to do. If you just cut right at the ends where I first showed you, right here, then you can pick up the whole thing and then snip on down like this. cutting your about a half inch. And this way you will save time because you're doing double the amount at one time. And there we go. So that'll save you a little bit of time too, and a little bit of cutting. So now the next step we want to do is we want to take this and we want to throw it into the washer. Oh, look, I forgot one here too. I'll do that in a minute. That's the other thing. You have to really look, because I found that even after I did it, I would miss one here and there. So you want to check that really closely before you throw this in the washer. Now for washing it, what you want to do initially is take this outside and shake it out, because you have a lot of loose threads on here that you want to get rid of first before you throw it in the wash machine. Then you want to put it in a washer. You could either do it at home, or you could do what I do and take it to the laundromat, because it does shed quite a bit on that first initial washing. You could also, if you're going to do it at home, get a large mesh bag. They sell them on Amazon, and that would cut down a lot of the loose stuff. It'll contain it into the bag, and then once you take it out of the washer, you can just shake it out outside. Then you want to put it in the dryer. Again, all those loose threads are going to now come off that the washing machine took out. And you want to make sure you are cleaning your lint trap, I would say every 10 to 15 minutes, because it is going to build up quite a bit. And then you're done. So you could wash this once and see how much it rags for you, or you can wash it twice if you want a little more ragging. But just know that eventually, after that first wash, most of the threads are going to come off, and you won't have that problem anymore. So that's why I usually take it to the laundromat, do it once there, and then I'll wash it again at home if I want some more ragging. I want the ragging a little deeper. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this to the laundromat. I'm going to wash it, and then I'll come back and show you what the final project looks like. Okay, so I'm back from getting it washed, and I did take it to the laundromat, and I washed it one time and dried it one time. And this is the result. It's nice and fluffy on all the edges. Even the outside of it is all ragged there. And at this point, you can decide whether you want to leave it at this, or you want to wash it another time and maybe try to get even make this some, fluffier. But I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and I'm probably going to end it right here. And of course, this is washable and dryable. So as you use this, you got to throw it in the washer. It'll even make it more fluffier. So right now I'm going to hang it up so that you can see the whole thing. So here is the final project, and it is absolutely darling. And just to recap, I did 9.5-inch squares. I used a cotton on the front, a white flannel in the middle, and then the green flannel on the back. And here's what the back looks like. And it measures approximately 47 by 56, around 56, I think it is. And I did 6 across and 7 down. So this is definitely a beginner-friendly project. It is a lot of fun to make, and you could literally make one for every season. They make great gifts also, and I hope you make yourself one. So if you enjoyed this video and got a lot out of it, I hope you give it a thumbs up, and I hope you subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when my next video comes out. And in the meantime, happy sewing and sew something happy.